The first breath of fresh air for Alexei Navalny after a grueling 32 days in hospital.
Demosthenes. The use of poison can be traced to before 4500 BCE, so its prevalence throughout history is not surprising. Ancient Greece was rife with political unrest, and orator, statesman, and lawyer Demosthenes was a prominent figure in his time. He was essentially opposed to the expansion of the Macedonian kingdom southward by then-ruler King Philip II, and spoke against the monarch.
He began to deliver speeches in the public assembly, warning his people about the danger of Philip II.
Demosthenes started an uprising, which ultimately failed, against King Philip II's successor and son, Alexander the Great. Alexander's successor, Antipater, wishing to prevent such unrest during his rule, sent men after Demosthenes. Rather than be captured, the orator ended his life by ingesting a plant-based poison.
Demosthenes had hidden poison in the tip of his pen in case he was ever captured.
The Philadelphia Poison Ring. Between 1932 and 1941, an arsenic ring was active in North and South Philadelphia. It was an insurance fraud scheme, taking out policies on future victims and later their accidental deaths. One of their tactics took advantage of the superstitious, women who consulted spiritualists to aid in their troubled marriages. The women would be provided first with ineffective remedies for their husbands, and later given an arsenic substance referred to as la fatura. Some knew its poisonous effects, but the less savvy were told it was a potent love potion that would cure their husbands. The skeptical were threatened with the evil eye, which some of you will recognize. The ring took the lives of anywhere between 50 and 1,000 victims. Slobodan Praljak.
Slobodan Praljak refused to sit, instead proclaiming his innocence.
Slobodan Praljak was a Bosnian general during the Croatian independence and Croat-Bosniak wars between 1991 and 1995. During this time, he committed a number of war crimes, including running a prison camp in which prisoners were regularly beaten, starved, and killed. He was indicted and surrendered to the ICTY, or International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, in 2004. He was accused of 4 counts of breaching the Geneva Conventions, 6 counts of violating laws of war, and 5 counts of crimes against humanity. The trial began in 2006 and was ultimately concluded in 2017. Upon the final verdict, Praljak took a vial from his pocket, declared he was not a war criminal, and drank cyanide.
The courtroom is now a crime scene.
Artaxerxes III. After Persian King Artaxerxes II died, his son the third ascended to the throne and had the entire royal family murdered in order to secure his rulership. Artaxerxes III eventually led a successful campaign to invade Egypt, which remained under steady Persian rule until Alexander the Great's conquest. As with most ancient monarchs, the story is long and complex, but eventually, court eunuch Bagoas, a trusted servant and military aide of Artaxerxes III, put in motion the plot to assassinate the ruler. The monarch's own physician allegedly administered the poison which ultimately ended his life. Bagoas placed the prince Arses on the throne. Arses, aka Artaxerxes IV, attempted to poison Bagoas, only to be poisoned himself by the latter. So poison ran in the family, apparently. The Chicago Tylenol murders. In 1982, the Chicago metropolitan area saw 7 deaths related to Tylenol consumption. Tests revealed that the pills had been laced with potassium cyanide, leading to the deaths of a girl as well as 6 adults.
Poison Tylenol was found still on the shelf at Woodfield Mall.
The first suspect, James William Lewis, sent a letter to Johnson & Johnson claiming to have committed the crime and demanding $1 million to cease the poisoning. He was found guilty of extortion, yet had no ties to the murders. Another man, Roger Arnold, was said to have spoken about killing using a white powder, but was also proven innocent. The case saw new light in 2009 when new evidence was supposedly found. However, there is still no proven guilty party.
I think it's solved. I can't go into that detail because it's not public.
The Jonestown massacre. Jonestown, or the People's Temple Agricultural Project, was a commune established in the Guyanese jungle under the leadership of American cult leader Jim Jones.
Jonestown was supposed to be a paradise in the South American jungle. It was anything but.
The cult's beliefs were an odd mixture of religion and socialism. By 1978, Jim Jones himself resided in the settlement, allegedly to escape negative American media attention.
And then as time wore on, I realized that there was no future in Jonestown.
After mounting pressure from outside investigations, Jones decided that revolutionary self-sacrifice was the only way to go for himself and his followers. On November 18, 1978, Jones had the commune physician put together a concoction of 7 pharmaceutical substances, including cyanide. It was mixed into a grape-flavored fruit drink. He then instructed his followers to drink it. A total of 918 lives were lost that day, young and old.
He was telling people it wasn't painful and that, people had to die with dignity.
Charles Francis Hall. Charles Francis Hall attempted 3 trips to the Arctic in the mid-1800s. His first attempt saw the ship make it as far as Baffin Island before it was forced to dock. His second attempt went as far as Naujaat in Nunavut, Canada. There, he shot and killed one of his crew members and was consequently abandoned by his crew. His third attempt, known as the Polaris Expedition, was ill-fated, with inter-crew rivalry and general disrespect for Hall. In the fall of 1871, Hall took ill after a cup of coffee and accused the ship's physician of poisoning him. He died a week later. The death was deemed to be a stroke until Hall's body was re-examined in the 1960s, and researchers found large doses of arsenic. Grigory Rasputin. Grigory Rasputin was a Russian mystic who, in 1905, famously became close to the royal family headed by Emperor Nicholas II.
He's a superhuman force of evil at the heart of the monarchy.
He called himself a faith healer, yet some believed he was a charlatan. Rasputin and Empress Alexandra Fedorovna together attempted to maintain influence over Russia while the emperor was off during World War I. The two were increasingly unpopular, and it was believed Rasputin threatened the future of the empire. This resulted in the assassination of Grigory Rasputin in 1916 at the hands of nobles. He was invited to the home of Prince Felix Yusupov and offered tea and cakes laced with cyanide.
He was invited down into the basement and given poisoned Madeira. It didn't seem to have any effect on him.
After consuming these and 3 glasses of poisoned wine, he still wasn't dead, so they shot him until he was.
At this point, Yusupov becomes impatient, goes to his office, collects a pistol, comes down again, shoots Rasputin twice in the side.
Alexei Navalny. Alexei Navalny is a Russian opposition leader, activist, and attorney. The words Russian and opposition superimposed here could explain the dangers of such a position, given the general reputation of Navalny's home country. He had been openly critical of Russian leadership and published many incriminating documents online, as well as organized protests. In 2020, while on a flight, Navalny suffered a rapid and severe illness, forcing the plane to make an emergency landing. He was taken to a Russian hospital and subsequently transferred to Berlin for further treatment.
On August 22nd, Navalny was transferred to Berlin for treatment. German doctors confirmed Navalny was poisoned.
The German hospital released a statement that Navalny had in fact been poisoned with a cholinesterase inhibitor, which affects the nervous system. He eventually recovered from the ordeal.
The first breath of fresh air for Alexei Navalny after a grueling 32 days in hospital.
Socrates. Did you know that Greek philosopher Socrates never published any writings? His students are credited with recording his words. Socrates was the father of Western philosophy. Innovative thought or change wasn't too popular in ancient Greece, and Socrates was subject to much criticism. He was put on trial in 399 BCE for irreverence to state religion and corruption of the youth.
The Athenians would now put to trial the one man who dared to question the way they lived their lives.
He was sentenced to death by self-administered poison. Some attempted to plot his escape, but the philosopher refused. Socrates was taken to a cell, in which he was given a cup of hemlock to drink.
Socrates would be executed in the traditional Athenian manner, by drinking hemlock.
He was almost 70 years old, and according to writings, he was calm and collected upon his death.
And then everyone in the room broke down, except Socrates himself, who said, "Really, my friends, what a way to behave.